What's up, Sen Squad? Welcome back to another Brawl Stars video. Today we're going to be talking about Brock's new gadget, Rocket Fuel. All of the specific stats related to this gadget that you're definitely going to want to know if you get it, as well as some general tips and tricks for how to make the most of this gadget and if it's better than Brock's other gadget. So when you use the gadget, your next shot is like supercharged, and the first change is that it moves slightly faster. So I measured the speed of the original rocket, and it flies all 10 tiles of Brock's range in exactly 1 second. So simple enough, it travels at a speed of 10 tiles per second. But then I calculated the time it took for one of these rocket fuel shots to fully reach the end of that same 10 tile range, and it only took 52 frames out of the 60 frames per second in the video that I was looking at. So that's just a bit faster. It's actually about 15% faster, and it comes out to a speed of approximately 11.5 tiles per second. So you are going to have to very slightly adjust your aiming to account for the fact that your rocket, if you use the gadget, is going to be moving a little bit faster than normal. But while you are shooting this boosted rocket, it's actually going to have the exact same hitbox when it's in the air. So that aiming guideline, that thickness that sort of shows you what you're going to hit while it's traveling along its path, it's the exact same white guiding line for the boosted shot, and it's entirely accurate. So if the white line is not covering whatever target you're aiming at, then you're not going to end up hitting it. But the explosion at the end of the rocket's path is going to be significantly changed. So usually when you're playing Brock and a rocket either reaches its max range or hits a specific target, it's going to explode, dealing area damage with a radius of about 1 tile, so 2 tiles in diameter. And if anyone is within that radius, they also take the full amount of damage from the rocket. But now once you've activated rocket fuel and you get that next boosted shot, this explosion radius is going to increase to about 1.5 tiles. So that means the whole diameter of the explosion is going to be about 3 tiles, which is pretty big. So since the radius is 1.5 tiles, that means you can blow up more than 1 tile in every direction. So up to 2 tiles in every direction you're going to be able to hit when it explodes. So that means if you're just attacking walls and trying to break them, you can break 2 tiles to the left, 2 tiles to the right, or 2 tiles deep. But you actually can't hit a tile that's 2 to the side and 2 deep because the diagonal direction is a bit longer. The distance is just root 2 tiles, which actually does come out to just below 1.5. But because the rocket explodes just before it hits the wall, it turns out that the distance is almost exactly equal to 1.5. And so the rocket explosion radius doesn't quite hit it. So obviously the rocket is changed slightly, but the most important thing is the fact that it deals double damage. So you're dealing at max level 3080 damage to whatever you hit with this gadget. So having this insane amount of burst damage is just really good for finishing off brawlers that are trying to run away, or if anyone thinks they can sort of outspeed you with their ammo, because Brock is typically fairly slow at unloading his ammo. This gadget is great because it's just 3080 damage instantly, and there's not much your opponent can do about it if they're pretty close to you. And the best time to use this gadget is when you see multiple people grouped up. Because the explosion radius is so large, it's pretty easy to hit both of them. You can just aim sort of in between them, and even if it doesn't hit them once it explodes, it probably will hit them in that explosion radius because they probably won't have walked far enough away by then. Or you can just aim for one of them, and then once it comes into contact with that first target and it explodes, if they're within 1.5 tiles of each other, the other person's going to get hit as well. Actually, in the world finals that just happened, there was a really good use of this gadget that ended up hitting everyone on the opposing team at the same time. So you can see just how powerful this is if you aim for people who are grouped up. But you don't have to use Brock's gadget just for dealing damage. It's also super good just for the fact that it can blow up obstacles essentially whenever you want in the middle of a match. So you can do this right when the match starts. You can just destroy whatever obstacles you want on the field and basically just manipulate the terrain to your advantage as much as possible consistently without having to rely on your super or anything like that. Just some really good maps that this works on, for example, Kaboom Canyon. You don't necessarily want to do this right at the start, but just destroying that 3 tile wall that's past the grass and closer to your opponent's save is extremely good for your team because it allows you to just walk straight through the center path to get to their safe, and it opens up a completely new avenue for your team to go on offense. That makes it a lot harder for your opponents to play defense. And so if you're ever left alone in the grass and your opponents are defending on the 2 opposite sides of the map, you can just use your gadget on that wall and then instantly walk right through it, and there's not going to be much defense there. So you're going to be able to get a ton of free damage off. And another map that this gadget is really good on just for blowing stuff up at the beginning is Canal Grande. This was actually a strategy that they also used in the World Finals, where the Brock just used 2 of his gadgets right at the very beginning to destroy all the walls on one side of the map. And they're also running a B on their team, who is a brawler who's just really good on open maps, because brawlers that don't have longer range than her can't really get close to her without just dying. And the fact that there are no walls there, specifically on Canal Grande, just really makes it easy for your team to just stay there and hold that portion of the map and just maintain control. And since there's grass there and nowhere else, that gives your team a major advantage when you can just hide in the grass and attack freely without your opponents being able to hide behind walls, and they can't see you because you're in the grass. So this gives a really huge advantage, and doing things like this at the start of the game is another really cool way to use Brock's gadget that can definitely pay off if you plan in advance. But now, while your gadget is certainly really good for breaking obstacles whenever you want, you also have your super that also has that same capability, but you want to make sure you're really using your supers and your gadgets at the right time if you are going to be running this rocket fuel gadget. Your super is the only way to get massive area control. So if your opponents aren't really grouping up close together, but they are somewhat in the same area, your super is definitely going to be a better option, because you can hit a bunch of people at once and just force them to really spread apart or just take the damage and probably die. And also, if someone's trying to run away from you at low health and they're going to get killed by just 1 or 2 rockets, your super is also probably going to be the better option, because it covers so much area, so it's going to be hard for them to run away unless they're already farther away than your super, in which case your normal attack probably won't do much good anyway. But using your rocket fuel trying to snipe someone at max range is sometimes a bit risky and cause you to completely waste one of your gadget uses that could have been used for something of more value, when instead you could have used your super and basically guaranteed that you were going to hit them. So I recommend just using your gadget if there is no other option. If you don't have your super charged up and someone is running away from you and you really want to be able to kill them because you know they have like less than 3,000 health. But other than that, you mainly just want to use your gadget for people who are relatively close to you, who you can probably guarantee a shot on, or if you want to break obstacles. And you want to make sure that you save your super for the situations in which only your super can be the best value. So now, comparing it to Brock's other gadget, Rocket Laces, they actually are kind of similar in the sense that if there's a giant wall, you can either blast through it immediately with the rocket fuel gadget, or you could just jump over it with Rocket Laces. So in that sense, they provide almost the same function. It's just that with rocket fuel, you're also going to be breaking the wall, so your opponents could also potentially take advantage of the fact that there's now a giant hole in the wall. But at the same time, since you are breaking it permanently, if it's a wall that you want to jump over repeatedly over the course of a match, then you only have to use one of your gadget uses as rocket fuel to be able to just constantly get through it. So in most situations, I feel like rocket fuel is just going to have more flexibility, because in terms of getting around obstacles, it has a very similar effect. Rocket Laces is certainly a bit better in that category, just because breaking it open a lot of times gives value to your opposing team as well, but rocket fuel also has the option of dealing 3,000 damage to a really large area when it explodes, and that is just extremely useful to have. So in general, I think rocket fuel is going to be better, but Rocket Laces is certainly good on maps where you really need to get over specific obstacles that you don't really want to leave broken open. A good example of this is probably the GG Mortuary heist map, where there is that really long wall blocking your opponent's safe, and if you have Brock, you can just jump right over that and immediately get to a point where you can start attacking the safe, and your opponents can't defend you if that wall stays intact. And Rocket Laces lets you keep it intact while still being able to jump over it 3 solid times, which is probably just the amount you're going to need before you can finish off the safe. So that's a good example of when Rocket Laces would be better, but in general, like I said, rocket fuel I think is going to be better overall because of its versatility. But that's going to wrap it up. Make sure to join the Send Squad by subscribing, turning on notifications, and going to your settings and enabling notifications there as well. But that's all for today, guys, so see you later.